All righty. So welcome everyone to the July Indicators of Behavior subproject meeting. I'm Charlie Frick from Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab and currently serving as the chair for the subproject. Glad to have everybody here with us today. So thought I'd start with just I see a lot of familiar faces. So welcome to any new members. If you do wish to say hi and introduce yourself, if first time back, feel free to raise your hand, and I'll give you a moment, but no pressure on that. Regardless, I thought I'd share a little bit of general news for the projects. We've had some good development lately. Hopefully next month we'll be able to go into a lot more detail on it, but just thought I'd share with everyone that the long delayed revision 2 of our reference implementation for the IOB is going through its final phases of public release review. And so hopefully by next month, we will have that new revision up on GitHub with its technical documentation. It includes a few new object types based on some of the feedback we've gotten from folks like NEA Systems who are using IOB and some of their work for autonomous agents. But it'll include detectors as well as information on how to embed playbooks, some examples utilizing Cacao, and look forward to getting that out there and having people play with it. Today, though, I'm going to give you guys a recap of our participation in the CASP Cybersecurity Automation Subproject, Cybersecurity Automation Village. Very happy that we have Duncan Sparrow here today. Duncan's one of the chairs of the CASP project. So welcome, Duncan. And also, general news, IOB is going to have a very busy September this year. So I'd share with everyone, we're now slated to speak at Borderless Cyber over at Royal Holloway, London on September 11th through 12th, I believe is the conference. Then we'll also be speaking at the National Cybersecurity Summit in Huntsville, Alabama, about a week later. And then a few days after that, we'll be speaking at the InfoSec World Conference in Orlando. So we, just sharing that the word's getting out and some folks are interested in what we're doing. And so we get to help, spread the word and hopefully grow our community a little bit more. Happy to share more details on that. Oh, Jason, yes, you have a question?
Yeah, just quick question on that, Charlie. So that's fantastic news. So some of those are a little bit new to me. I'm just curious, like, are those things you just learned about this week or whatever? Or are they new news, or how do we get the news out more? I guess my question.
Yeah, so hadn't put a lot out on public channels yet because I thought we'd announce it here first. InfoSec World. Actually, we found out a few months back and made some announcements about that. But the other two are a lot more recent. So we were just confirming with all of Oasis and with some of my internal logistics that we could be there in person at Borderless Cyber to talk, but we got that squared away. National Cybersecurity Summit, found out, I think, somewhere in the last 7 days. So it's fairly hot. That one's fairly hot off the presses.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, we should, I don't know if the OCA has like an events page on the website. We should talk with Jane about that. Like, because
you and Duncan are in sync. He just typed the same thing as you were saying it.
Yeah, we should be look to do that. I think, not just for IOB, but in general, just highlight all the different places that things are going on. Yeah, anyway, sorry, go ahead, Charlie. This is great news.
No, I agree. With them being in September, I was planning to not do a whole lot of LinkedIn posts till August, because 2 months out's a little early, but be glad to share what we can. And I know, but that said, I just saw Borderless Cyber starting to do some promotions.
Yeah, I
this
mean,
week.
it's early, but it's also not, because like if you want to drum up interest in people who might actually want to attend the conference, like if you're going to
True.
attend the conference in September, you've probably got to start planning pretty
Yeah.
soon, right? So yeah, Duncan just said people need to save the date. So like I don't think it's too early at all.
Okay. I'll get some words out I'll get some word out this week. Probably tomorrow morning. Somewhere I've got it written down when the optimal time to put out your LinkedIn, but normally it's lunchtime. So, but yeah, I'll definitely announce. We'll say InfoSec World is a little bit larger, geared toward with a lot of managed service providers attending, which is a big reason why we were looking at that one. We submitted a while back, but NCS is got a pretty good U.S. government representation, which is a community we also, with CISA's heavy support of the work, we feel could be a really good venue. And then of course, Borderless Cyber is always near and dear to us, being an Oasis project. So, but yeah, I'll get the word out. So any other questions about the conference, news? Anyone? Just making sure. Excellent. In that case, I would like to do today's technical talk on CASP. So let me.
I do have, before you jump into that, Charlie.
Oh, absolutely.
At the end of the call, is there going to be any time? Because I did have a couple of technical things I wanted to talk ask
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah, this shouldn't take the whole call, and I was definitely saving open discussion for.
Okay, perfect.
Absolutely. So, and like I said, I am glad we had Duncan today. Duncan, if I get anything horribly wrong, please feel free to interrupt me. But I just to let everybody know, I stole a lot of these slides from Duncan's deck. That he was very smart to kind of have a live presentation that we could edit and add content towards. So CASP will be putting out a refined set a little bit later, but just sharing a couple snippets to help highlight the event. So this was on June 13th. CASP, Cybersecurity Automation Subproject, hosted a Automation Village / Plugfest. This was in conjunction with CISA's Sbombarama, and thought that, and all the Plugfest data, as well as all the sweat equity and additional content, is available up on GitHub. And so these were some of the participants and for technologies and projects that were participating. During the Plugfest itself, we saw several technologies demonstrated. And let me just get this. I don't believe the Plugfest, and so to answer one of the questions we're getting out there, I don't think we got the Plugfest uploaded to YouTube. Duncan, not to put you on the spot, but I think there was a problem with one of the recordings. Is that
no, actually,
right?
we did find the recording. There was an issue for a while. We did, for lack of a better term, lose the recording because we couldn't find it where they put it. But we did eventually find it. It is so it is there. It's in sort of a hidden link at the moment. Although actually, I think the link might be on the website. But we're in the process of. And it's again one of the many things on my to-do list, breaking it up, because it's an all-day thing.
Long.
It was an all-day single session YouTube. If we ever did it again, we have to remember to actually break the recording into sections at the time as opposed to figuring out after. So we're in the process of doing that. Actually, I think what we ended up doing is just putting the times on the YouTube. So yeah, let me go find the link. I think it is somewhere in the meeting notes. One other nit on the link that Charlie showed a slide ago. Either that's currently the correct link and it's about to change, or it just changed. I forget which, because it's in the next Plug Fest section, and it's no longer a next Plug Fest. It's now a past. And somebody else pointed out we probably shouldn't just have to move them each time. We should just reorganize how we do it. So we're in the process of reorganizing the directory. So if you can't find it, just start higher in the tree and work down. You'll be able to find it.
Yeah, if you
look for the link right now.
If you go to GitHub Open Cybersecurity Alliance CASP, that'll get you to the top of the CASP project. And when I send out the minutes, I'll definitely provide that note for the link. But as I was saying, we had pretty good representation at the event, given that poor Duncan was given, I think, less than a month's notice to put this whole thing together. It was a really good turnout. So I'll give a quick overview of, and the full deck will have a lot more detail than what I'm going to kind of glance through here, but just give you a little, sampler of some of the things there. The OpenC2 team did some really interesting work, and I'll give out a link for this slide deck when I send out the Slack message in the email. But they demonstrated their OpenC2 orchestrator, so that could interact with multiple projects, and used a MQTT messaging broker to facilitate that. And several actuator profiles. I wanted to find a kind of higher view of how they were using OpenC2 for sharing anomaly detection logic, pushing that out into Kestrel to actually load up and run a Kestrel hunt book against some saved data, and then use the feedback from that to launch commands to Cacao. And then we did some demonstrations with, with Duncan's little Blinky board, and all went rather smoothly. So some really cool ideas there, being able to use OpenC2 for a standardized set of ways to call automation across different types of actuator profiles, and integrated very well with Kestrel for the search, and then running out and sending commands to impact the virtual blinking light board, just to show that we could take the result based on the result of a Kestrel hunt, go send commands in, in actual operations that would most likely be things like firewalls and other types of devices that we'd be sending the commands to. But it was a great proof of concept by that team. I'm gonna go kind of quickly through these, mostly just to give a sampling, but like I said, and we'll get the whole shebang listed up on the YouTube link, as well as lots and lots of detail from the CASP project. So it was, like Duncan said, it was an all-day event, and we had a lot. I'm just trying to get the high points. Next up, we had Cacao, which is the standardized form for security playbooks that we had some really good support with. And what I wanted to show, a couple of the features that were highlighted. Excellent. Brett Jordan talked us through the digital signature features, how you're able to, how the standard can support multiple signatures at multiple levels. So when you think about sharing across a community, this is a way that you can set your own policy for which playbooks and which parts of playbooks you're willing to trust based on who they're signed by. And so that allows you to have a lot more refinement into how you can take and process the automation being sent your way when it's shared. Also, Sidearm demonstrated an integration of taking Cacao playbooks into their case management platform. And this is kind of going towards the effort of eventually getting towards a fully automated sharing to taking action infrastructure. but it's a great demonstration of a vendor being able to take this open standard and fold it in and deploy it. And along with that, another thing that we've been looking at is ways to help deal with the visualization. And I know previously we've used a lot of business process model notation, BPMN, to represent our workflows that we've done in the reference implementation, as well as several others. And Vaughn Shanks from Sidearm was able to reveal a new BPMN to Cacao converter that he's posted up on GitHub. And he tested it against a set of 81 security playbooks in BPMN, which I found entertaining because I'm the guy that wrote those 81 playbooks, and based on help from all my colleagues here at the lab. But show that it is, we got to go further, that where if it was visualized in BPMN, you can feed it into the script and it will convert those into a valid Cacao format. So it's still early and there's still some structures that are being handling, but particularly with complex gateways. But this gives us a chance to start looking for ways to take those BPMN processes and then turn them into Cacao and embed commands. And what was a really good dovetail to this, I'll show in just a second, came from Vasilios Mavridis and team over at University of Oslo, Norway. But essentially, what we'll show is this is a snippet of the IOB graph visualization. And Vasilios was calling out the fact that what we can showcase in a moment is it's possible to easily embed the Cacao into the playbook object. And big thanks out to Vasilios for sharing a lot of their academic research on how we could do that to better support the Sticks format that we use. He also has some write-ups for MISP as well for best practices to embed playbooks. And when we see COA, that's short for course of action. And so when it comes to once you've been able to detect a sequence of behaviors and correlate them, you can then recommend multiple courses of action for response, and courses of actions can have a one-to-many relationship to playbooks because there may be more than one way to achieve your course of action. And we wanted to make sure that we stayed compliant with the Sticks spec and still had a way to share this type of data. And what was also very exciting, we don't have a release date yet, but Vasilios was able to demonstrate an open source Cacao visual editor so that along with being able to convert BPMN into Cacao, we now have a way, one of the first ways I've seen, to visualize a Cacao workflow with an open source program and actually add those commands into the object all through a GUI, which I believe will be a significant helper as tools like this will make a big difference in fostering the adoption of Cacao. And so I don't know when it will be fully released yet, but there's some validation schemas online right now. And this tool, I believe when it's released, will not only edit, but it'll also validate the workflows in real time as you build these out. And that will be, we're very excited and looking forward to that coming out. All right. Oh, now my mouse is lost. So let's see if I can, there we go. Another topic that was shown up was the threat actor context ontology. So this goes more into full, when we look at a lot of the types of graphs that I've demonstrated over our previous meetings on IOB, that's a lot of property graphs, just ways to visualize the complex, knowledge we want to share across our community for representing and responding to adversary behavior. The threat actor context ontology is looking at how you take that out to another level, or semantic ontologies that can help provide more, complex associations and context you can derive from shared information. And so that is taking the graphs to a whole nother level. And they were able to demonstrate a proof of concept in their ontology, in an ontology viewer, to see how we could share certain data from sticks and then feed in additional ontologies to be able to build out better, more refined classifications on threat actors. So even though there are some things that we might not convey in the stick standard, as was decided through the CTITC of OASIS, the TAC allows the capability to import additional ontologies so that you can make semantic identifications to go into an additional level of detail. And during the Plug Fest, they did an example with Tim Casey's Intel Threat Agent Library to show how we might provide some data in sticks about a threat actor, and then you would have ways to fit their library very easily on identifying things such as competitors or government cyber warriors. And they did a little demonstration of that working. So it showed how one set of data could be shared and how by importing the TAC ontology, you could expand that out to pick a one level lower of detail all through analytics. So some interesting work there. Then I won't belabor IOB too much for most of you that have been here a few times now, but kind of gave the overview concept of our whole goal here is sharing a sequence of observed adversary behaviors that you normally wouldn't write detections for because they have a false positive, but the correlated set has a low false positive. But to help work in the event, we partnered with several members in CASP, stood up a taxi server for the sharing of indicator of behavior objects and did some tests to demonstrate that. So we had put that up using the OASIS medallion project and verified that the sticks bundles transferred just fine. Then we also highlighted the sticks to Neo4j converter script that we released a few months back and showed how we could process the AnySticks 2.x bundle and convert that into a Neo4j graph database, which then we used a custom IOB object built strictly for the CASP demonstration to showcase a series of behaviors for a adversary using PowerShell to discover processes, WMI to search for users, and searching then an attacker search for antivirus, and then using PowerShell again. And I see a question on there about IOB and attack flow. And we've had the attack flow folks here. And one of the ways I help differentiate is attack flow is really focused on sharing the narrative and human readable. And what we're really looking at is sharing more in machine readable format, how to detect it and what to do about it once you observe it and how to correlate the detections. So they do complement each other really well. We've had some really good technical exchanges with that team and shown how it's pretty easy to convert the behavior sequences directly into attack flow, and then custom objects in attack flow can incorporate the sticks that we're generating in IOB. But there definitely is a heavy similarity between, or good synergy, I should say, between the two efforts. That we're each going at slightly different aspects of the problem. And what we were able to share in the CASP demonstration was we built out IOB behaviors in our extended sticks domain objects, made sure to keep the links back to the attack patterns from MITRE ATT&CK, but also we were utilizing Stickshifter. This is all based on a Kestrel demonstration from last year's Black Hat, but the behaviors we were able to tie to Stickshifter queries that we shared in our detection objects and a Kestrel hunt book that we put in our detection group object that we then linked to a quarantine and remediate course of action and an embedded Cacao playbook to go do that quarantine. And just showing quick, not super exciting, but ran a few graph database queries to showcase that once you did receive that Stix IOB bundle, how you could script up with automation or manually if you wish, ways to query that out of a database, graph database, to automatically get the analytics from Stickshifter, pull the hunt book for Kestrel, and pull out the Cacao JSON for implementing into the other projects. So was a really good way to package up everything and share it. And as we work on future Plugfests, we'll even try and get that even more tightly integrated so that maybe eventually we can do this all real time of letting someone build and insert into the bundle, distribute, pull, and run. But then finally, Duncan gave us a good overview of the PACE project for posture attribute collection and evaluation, as well as the software bill of materials effort, which worked really well with the Sbombarama going on at that same time, where we talked a little bit about some of the capabilities, and he demonstrated inserting the Sbom properly into a web app so that anyone can access it. And a little bit of talk on vulnerability exploitably exchange VEX format for sharing vulnerabilities. And then this was a little bit of a teaser, as the following day at Sbombarama had a very large amount of discussion on all of these topics. But it was a very good event to showcase how we were able to make the open standards work together. And right now there is the next event is being planned for the first quarter of 24, probably in New Jersey or DC, and those negotiations are ongoing. Don't want to, steal Duncan's thunder, but we are all eagerly awaiting learning when the next one will be, and looking forward to starting to prep that. So that was the nickel tour of the CASP event. Duncan, do you feel there were any big things I left out or things I should include?
I don't think there's any things you left out. I guess there's something I'd like to I'll call overemphasize, or two things. One, just a hitchhike on the very last comment you made on the next one. Yes, AT&T is hoping to host. They're still trying to get permissions, but one of the individuals is hoping to host this 2-day big event in probably March of next year. And because AT&T is a large vendor, customer of a lot of vendors, their intent is actually to invite their vendor community in and say, hey, why aren't you doing this stuff? Which I really love. Because there's also a done user side push that's going to get people to be doing all this. So that's just a comment on the last thing, and to release, a little bit on, I mean, they don't have permission to do it yet, but we're hopeful that it will be at AT&T. AT&T hosted one of the previous, in fact, the one before the one we're just talking about today, AT&T hosted in their DC office. And if they were to host again, it would be either in their DC office or one of their big New Jersey sites. But to something you passed over it, you mentioned it, but I guess I'd like to overemphasize it. One of the objectives of CASP is to get the user community interested in all this by seeing how all this stuff works together, not just that it can work together, the fact that you get the value of it from it all working together. And so those sort of, we had this, I'll say, hokey use case we made up on ransomware that had 6 days. It was the 6 days were basically 6 different perspectives on what went on during the course of this hypothetical ransomware attack. And the purpose of that was to try and get, I'll say, the business community interested. In other words, we're all techies. We all dive right into the details of each of one of our silos. And we probably don't look enough at but what's it do for the end user? And even when we do it, we look at what our piece does for the end user. And it turns out that for an awful lot of this, it works best when it's working in conjunction with all of them together. And so we tried to sort of make that, we made it single particular use case in this particular case. But so a request to the IOB community in general would be, for moving forward for CASP, one, to just, hey, feel free to get involved and help us with all this. But two, particularly from the IOB perspective, to look at you have a set of IOB use cases. I'll say they're very IOB centric. Try to pull them up a level to this, not necessarily the particular use case we made up, because it might not accentuate all things you want to accentuate, but you can make other of those, I'll call them high level use cases. Maybe it's not ransomware, maybe it's business enterprise or business executive or business email compromise, whatever the heck BEC stands for. Or maybe it's one of the other, payroll hijack or something, who knows? But whatever makes sense for you to highlight your thing you're trying to highlight, but highlight it in the context of what would a plain old corporate person who's not a security geek, why do they care about any of this? Because that's where I think we do not do as good a job as we could. And so it's not just the fact they do work together, it's the fact that, so it's going to save enterprises money if they do it our way. And that'll get them more interested in doing it. So that would be, again, I use the word overemphasize because I really like to hammer on that point. So I'm hammered on it, and back to you. One thing I will say to the rest of the IOB communities, I think some of you were actually present, but for those of you who weren't, Charlie did a really good job on this. He was one of the most prepared ahead of time. He's been the best at follow-up. So kudos to your group in general. You were well represented. Over.
Thank you very much for that. Also, I saw a question in the chat about the IOB schema. So at this second in time, the reference implementation has the sample JSON that we've used for a lot of our examples in there, but the schema will be included in the revision 2 update, where we'll have an updated JSON along with all the SDO and SCO extended schemas included as well. And so Kurt and his team have been working on getting that up there. So hopefully in the next few weeks, we'll have an updated revision that will have not just the sample JSON, but a set of all the schema that we've been using. And we've been working to make sure that those are renamed X-OCA. And yes, Abdul, I'd be glad to include a link. So the easiest way is, one moment, I'm just pulling up the GitHub right now. So I'm going to send you to the top level of the IOB GitHub right there in the chat. And then there's a reference implementation folder, as well as Duncan mentioned, the use cases are a little high level right now, but that'll get you to all the information on ours. Jason, yes, you have a question or comment? And if you're talking, Jason, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, thanks. Yeah, just to add on to what Abdul's asking, because this is actually what I was queuing up to ask as well. And it was more about, so I know we have a JSON sample, right? But, and by the way, what I'm about to ask, it's not just for IOB. I'm going to actually start pushing on Stickshifters as well in this, like around the actual extension. Like I've had people over the past week actually come out and reach out to me asking for like, hey, where can I get the extension for blah? Where can and we haven't done that. So, just an ask, a nudge, I guess. I think, and I think when we do create an extension, I think that we should probably think about, and this is probably a matter for the TSC, Charlie.
Yep, I know where you're going.
Yeah, creating a repo just for the extension so they're all in the same place, easy to find, as opposed to strewn about a whole bunch of different groups.
Which was a topic I wanted to bring up at last month's, but it unfortunately got canceled. So
well, yeah, hopefully, yeah. I mean, I definitely want to talk about it this upcoming one, because I think we're way overdue on a couple of these objects. Like we've got the asset object, we've got a bunch here in IOB, and I think having those in a repo that's easy to find that we can publish and advertise would go a really long way to people making use of this stuff.
And I think it'll be good. And this is a little deep in the weeds, but I'm also going to push hard that we adopt maybe an X-OCA naming process for a lot of our extensions to kind of provide a unified OCA representation. Yeah, I will say that I did leave off on the news that I did get an opportunity to brief this concept to the CTITC last month as well. And it was really, really, really well received for what it's worth. And I
Oh, great.
think, and Duncan, I think yep, I see your hand up too, Duncan.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask a question about that because I was on the Defense Against Disinformation call yesterday, which is doing similar to IOB in creating a Sticks extension. And there's also, almost look at Cacao as a Sticks extension because it's, for the course's action piece. And then there's another one even in OCA. So we have these different extensions, and I'm not sure which path you're going to follow, but what came up, because Jamie Clark, the OCA lawyer, was on the DAD call, and he mentioned that all said and done, there's intellectual property issues if you sort of do this cross group thing, which you can do, but something I guess you might want to consider. I do think you should do the things Jason just said. First of all, get the extension in one place, get us to agree to it that it is the quote actual extension. The question I was going to ask is what happens next, and we probably want to think about whether we sort of make it our own thing and we just take it, I'll say, through the standards track process. And then if they want to hand it to CTI, or if we sort of just say, hey, we got this extension and hand it to CTI, because the problem with the path that I assumed was going to be the path until Jamie brought that up is it does introduce some of these weird IP quirks, as well as it's like a whole different crowd of people and a different, we got to have a meeting and then they have a meeting and you got to go back and forth. And I know in some other standards work I've involved in, this back and forth stuff is, it just adds lots of time. So my gut, very, without much data, just literally between yesterday and today, is we might want to consider that we take it, that it's our thing, it's OCA's stick extension, and then hey, it's there, and if CTI wants to put a rubber stamp on top of it, great, but that we sort of took it through first. But again, I don't know that's the right answer. We need to think it through. It's just I have changed positions since yesterday based on that, so I just thought I'd bring it up for everyone else.
Okay. No, I'm all for getting, and getting a consensus on the TSC on which route they want to move forward on that, because I'm good with either route. So, but mostly we want to get it out there in a place that's easy for folks to find it and have a definitive set for all these schema. And so, and I couldn't agree with you more, Jason. Want to get it out there and so people can use it and we can find the challenges. Okay. So those were some of the high points, and we'll be happy to share more of the schema. I also saw, so Abdul, I also saw you're interested in looking at some of the TAC folks and how much they've been looking at UCO. And I believe they have been doing some diving into that. But I will say, if you, on the GitHub link I sent you, should get you to a link where you can also join the Open Cybersecurity Alliance Slack channel. And TAC, I believe, has a channel in there. And if not, Vasilios, you can come bug me, but when I can do an introduction. But I know Vasilios would love to talk more on ontologies and show where they're looking to take some of that work. So with that said, I wanted to know if there were any more topics of general discussion that folks wanted to bring up. If not, we might wrap up a little early this month, but just wanted to open the floor for anybody that had more they wanted to share. And I tend to take awkward silence as full concurrence with where we've been going. So if there are any more questions, I'm going to stop the recording, and then thank you guys, and we'll convene next month, where hopefully I'll be taking you through the new reference implementation and the schemas.
Thanks a lot, Charlie. This is great update, great stuff going on here. So just just on the thing you talked about at the very beginning, these events and stuff.
Yep.
Can you like send an email out to the list just with those, or did you already do that, or?
That will be out. That's going to be part of my minutes that I'll be putting
Okay.
out. Probably what I tend to do is send them on Thursdays, because we do this talk. Then Wednesday morning, I kindly asked Jane to pull the video file and drop it on YouTube for me, because I don't have access to the YouTube account. And then once I have the YouTube link, I put that together with the minutes to
Okay.
the listserv in the Slack. But I will definitely mention all the conferences and include links for them there. And we'll work on some messaging out on LinkedIn for this week as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Charlie.
Absolutely. Let me hit stop on the recording.